Welcome to Mr. Gurcharan Das. It's really mic. Yes. So, could you just work on his mic? Yes, yes. So, hello, Gurcharan ji, and should I call you Gurcharan like I
Please
normally
call
do?
me like a
Yes,
normal
yes.
person. Yeah.
Normal person, I know. If we were in less Victorian surroundings, I'd say let's drop the G string. So thank you for doing this session, another sort of freedom. So, you've been known to write so many stories which kind of trace various aspects of your life and your thoughts. So when I started programming, I thought I'd call this session, "This is a Restless Baby," because Gurcharan had access to his mother's. Let him tell you the story.
Well, the reason I could write the early chapters of my book is because my mother had kept a diary, and I appear on page 17 of that diary, and she calls me a restless baby. This is when I'm about 3 months old. Then a year later, she's calling me a difficult child. And then another year later, I have become a troublemaker. And then when I go to kindergarten in school, the teacher, my name is Ashok Kumar, by the way, at that time.
We'll come to that, yes.
My name is, shouldn't we get a copy of the book? Because I wanted to.
We'll get a copy of the book from the
He
bookstore.
was, there is one in there, a copy of the book.
He's left his book inside.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Anyway, so my name is Ashok Kumar, and obviously she has a problem because she, after a few weeks, is started calling me Nahi Kumar, because she keeps, I raise my hand to want to do something, she says Nahi. And so everything is Nahi, no, no. So I have become Nahi Kumar. As to the name of the book, frankly, my name was Ashok Kumar, given to me by my mother. But my grandmother suspected that my mother had given me that name, her daughter-in-law had given me that name because she thought my mother was secretly in love with a Bollywood actor named Ashok Kumar. So this was not appropriate. She takes me to her guru, places me at his feet, and she says, "Guruji enu na deo," give this boy a name. And the guru, seeing me at his feet, saying, well, let's call him Gurcharan Das. So overnight, at the age of 3.5, I am transformed from the Prince of Happiness, Ashok Kumar, to the humble servant of the feet of the Guru, Gurcharan Das. And some years later, I asked the Guru, "Why did you give me that name?" And he says, well, it's humility is a good thing to be reminded of. But then he gave me the very best definition of humility that I've ever heard. It is to take your work seriously, but not yourself seriously. And so I have dedicated, Malavika, I have dedicated my book to the happy few who don't take themselves too seriously. And that actually is the secret of the title also of the book. Because if you can live your life not taking yourself too seriously, you have a certain sort of freedom.
That's beautiful. So while you're talking about a certain sort of freedom, we'll take another title of your books, The Difficulty of Being Good, and discuss what in your life illustrates the difficulty of being good.
Again, Malavika, I'm 4 in that same kindergarten where I'm called Nahi Kumar. And I discover that all the kids in class have a pencil box. You know those 2 Anna pencil boxes that we all had with 2 pencils and a rubber. And except the kid next to me, he doesn't have any. He's too poor. He's a Muslim boy named Ayan. And I alternately feel sorry for him and alternately feel irritated because he keeps borrowing my pencils. And so one day at recess, what do? There's a rich kid in our class who has 2 pencil boxes. One of them is shiny red, made in England. He's the richest kid in class. He's the only one who comes to school in a car. All of us walk to school. And so at recess, everybody goes away, and I take the pencil box from the rich kid's table and I put it on the poor kid's table. Must be some kind of socialist instinct at that early age. But when the class recess is over, the class returns, the rich kid screams, "Who stole my pencil box?" And the teacher, because he's the rich kid, the teacher also gets worried. And so she makes us all stand up, and we go around the room, and everybody says, I don't know who took this pencil box. And when it comes to Ayan's turn, he says, yes, there's a pencil box on my table, but I didn't take it. And when then the turn comes to me, when I should have rescued Ayan, I remain frozen, absolutely silent. And Ayan is led to the front of the class, and he's punished. And I still get nightmares of what happened. And the only thing I can say is a kind of temporary madness that came over me. 4 months later, this we are talking about 1947. 4 months later, it's August 1947, Azadi, but in Punjab, it's not Azadi, it's partition. And Lahore, where the kindergarten is, has now gone to Pakistan. We are Hindus and we have to flee for our lives. And so we flee, and the next scene is at the railway station. We are waiting for a train. We've come safely across the border. So it's Jalandhar, and we are waiting for the train. Trains are not running on time. And there's a handsome, tall Muslim policeman keeping the peace on the platform. And suddenly 2 Sikh teenagers come from behind and they spear him with their kirpans. And he falls down, blood all over. My mother shuts the window. And this, again, is an absurd episode, like the Ayan one, because it doesn't make sense to me that these are two strangers who've just killed a man who they didn't know, and just because he's of a different religion, they shout Musalman when they do it. And so I think of temporary insanity in both cases. In one case, a personal insanity in my case. In the other case, the whole nation's insanity, or at least Punjab's insanity, where suddenly neighbors start killing each other cheerfully in the name of religion. And what explains that absurdity but temporary insanity?
Yes, so that is one episode where you found a temporary insanity. But the other difficulties you kind of encountered was when you went to Washington, and that wasn't temporary. The kind of challenges you faced there, they were deeply entrenched, and another kind of difficulty, which is called racism. So talk us through your Washington experience and how you kind of thumbed your nose at everything that happened there.
So I'm now 13. My father has been transferred to Washington by the Indian government. My father's an engineer, and 3 engineers from India are in Washington to negotiate the Indus Water Treaty with Pakistan. Pakistan has sent, on the very first day, they have a meeting it's the World Bank, which is the arbiter, because it's going to give money to both countries for irrigating the basins of the rivers of the Punjab. And Pakistan has sent 125 lawyers. India has sent 3 engineers. And the first thing the president of World Bank tells the Pakistanis is send the 125 lawyers back and bring 3 engineers, because this is a matter of sitting down with maps and working out the irrigation potential of these rivers. Anyway, while he is doing that, I'm put into school, a high school called Theodore Roosevelt High School, and my mother realizes very quickly that I'm way ahead of the class. And not only that, the class is 200 kids, and they have 5 sections. 2 are college preparatory sections, which kids who are expected to go to college, and 3 are vocational sections, kids who will go and work in factory. They've already decided that. Anyway, I've been put in the vocational section, and my mother goes to plead with the principal of the school, and she says, give him a test. He's already way ahead of his class. Why, and at least put him in the college prep section. And the principal looks at the color of my skin, and he says, welcome to America, son. In our country, colored boys not supposed to get too big for their boots. And so you stay out of trouble, and 4 years, you'll get a diploma, and there are factories opening up around in Maryland and Virginia, and you'll get a good job. Welcome to the American dream. Well, my mother, of course, I mean, she's confronted racism. This is before the civil rights movement, so there's a toilet.
Mid-50s.
In the mid-50s, there's a toilet for coloreds and there's a toilet for whites, and I'm never quite sure which one I should go into. Anyway, so then in my class, in my section, we have to go to a class called shop. And in shop, we learn carpentry, we learn to work with our hands to fix a radio, all very useful things. And when my mother hears that what I'm studying in school, she says, hi, hi, like a good Punjabi woman. She says, this sort of work is not done by our kind of people. It's for the lower classes, meaning she's making a caste remark. OBCs do that kind of thing. And so in America, actually in a middle class house that we have grown up in Punjab especially, you were not confronted with caste. And so the middle class always glossed over it. But so I discovered caste in India in racist America. But the happy side of the story is that a few months later, a liberal American family has a daughter in my class, and she invites her classmates to a birthday party. And they're liberal because they invite blacks and whites. And so we have lots of eats. That's the best part. And then we play a game called Spin the Bottle. Now, I don't know if you have ever played this game, but it was very
After
popular.
hearing the story, many will.
And so you sit around the circle and you spin a bottle. And wherever the bottle stops, the person sitting with the mouth, where the mouth of the bottle is pointed, the person of the opposite sex, you're allowed to kiss that person. Now, the unwritten rule in this gathering is that the black boys kiss black girls and white boys kiss white girls. But when it comes to my turn, everybody's confused. What is he going to do? So I solved the problem. I kiss everyone. I kiss black girls, I kiss white girls, and then I keep getting bonus turns because of that. So I kiss all evening, and I have a great time.
Also, he managed to, in between all of this, he also got into Harvard, so he thumbed a nose at all the educators and teachers who kind of refused to change his section.
Well, yeah, I mean, I got my revenge against the principal because he'd forgotten this incident, and he asked me to come and see him when I got this 3 scholarships. And he was reading the Washington Post with his mouth moving. And I'm there, and he's saying, son, we're proud of you, kind of thing. Nobody in our school, in my memory, has gotten these scholarships. I've graduated at the top of my class. And he says, welcome to the American dream again. And I am too decent to remind him that he had a very different idea of the American dream for me.
So the other thing in the book is the way your father raised you with certain ideas and the way your mother raised you. So your father raised you with the intention of making a life, and your mother raised you with the aim that you would make a living. So how did you balance these? Talk us through how you forgot one of the messages and went back to it a little later.
Right. Well, you know, I actually go back to kindergarten again, and I come home with a report card now. And my mother sees me skipping home happily, sporting a green report card, and she's standing at the door, and she says, did you stand first? And my father's nearby, and he says, that's the wrong question. Ask him what he likes in school. Does he like to draw? Does he like stories? And so on. And so very early in my life, I've got 2 influences. My mother, like a good Punjabi middle-class woman, she is concerned with her middle-class insecurities. that I have to make a living, so I better work hard and get good marks. But my father is more relaxed, and he's always concerned about that you have to also make a life. And he never quite tells me what he means by it, but I get the picture. So jump again to the age 17, when at Palam Airport, I'm saying goodbye to my parents. My mother has tears in her eyes, and she's saying, now study something useful at Harvard. You've got to come back to make a living and a job. Why don't you be like your father and be an engineer? You'll get a job. I arrive at Harvard and I see the course catalog. And it's a treasure chest. I've never seen anything so beautiful as the courses that are on offer. And the nice thing about an American undergraduate education is that you can choose any subject for the first 2 years. You don't have to have a major or like in India, arts, commerce, and so on. So what do I study? I promptly forget engineering. I study Greek tragedy, Russian novel, Renaissance painting, history of capitalism, Bauhaus architecture, Chinese ceramics, and Sanskrit love poetry. And when my mother hears that I'm studying Sanskrit at Harvard, she says, hi, a dead language. Only the dead will now give him a job. And so, but my father, you see, has to reassure her that he's making a life through books. So don't worry. Anyway, so finally, I graduate with philosophy, with a degree in philosophy. And I got a scholarship to do a PhD at Oxford. And I'm home that summer, waiting to go to Oxford. And one evening, I asked myself, do I really want to spend the rest of my life at that stratosphere of abstract thought? No. I want a life of action. I don't quite know what that is. But so I quietly write a letter to Oxford saying I'm not coming. And my mother's worst nightmare has come true. She has a grown-up, unemployed son at home, and what in Punjabi we call vela, idle. And so we have a nosy neighbor in Chandigarh where we live. And the neighbor comes and visits my mother for a cup of coffee. And she always asks her, Thoda munda ki kar raha hai? What is your son doing? And my mother gets very embarrassed and she doesn't know what to say. And so I see this embarrassment every day on her face. So to save her further anxiety, I answer the first advertisement I find in the Times of India. And there is a job, there's an ad for a job looking for trainees from a company that makes Vicks Vapor Rub. And so I apply and I go for the interview. They invite me for the interview. And my boss, the person who's interviewing me, says, what is your objective in life? And I say, happiness. And he says, no. I meant, do you want to be in production or marketing or finance or what? And I realize I've given him the wrong answer. And then at that point, a stunning woman enters the room with coffee and tea, maybe his secretary. And So she puts the coffee and tea and she leaves. But I'm totally distracted by now. And so he says, you talked about happiness. What will give you happiness? I said, a beautiful woman. And he's, and again, I realize it's the wrong answer. And so anyway, the poor guy doesn't quite know what to do with me, but he humors me. And I realize I've failed in this interview and I go home. But a few days later, I get a letter saying that they have taken me on. So I'm transported from a high-thinking Brahmin to a money-grabbing Banya. Overnight, I land up in Bombay to my first job.
Okay. So, so that's the trajectory of your life. Now let's talk about memoir writing. Uh, what made you write kind of a memoir where there's a lot of thought, what you think? How difficult was it to be honest while writing your memoirs? And
Well,
also, what do you do with the ego, which wants you to make yourself look good?
well, you know, let me share a secret with you. Writing a memoir means I've learned is reliving your life. And I have discovered that reliving your life is actually better than living it. Why? Because, you see, a memoir is different from an autobiography. An autobiography is a chronological narration of the events. I was born here, I went to school there, I worked here, a boring record of your life. A memoir is somewhere you relive your life and you try to connect the dots of things that have happened in your life, but you find a theme in those. But that's how you connect your dots around a theme. So you're recounting, you are selecting. And why reliving your life is better than living it is because you're playing God. You're deciding what happened to you. And you're deciding what events from your life that you're writing about. Now, the temptation when you write a book, a memoir, is to want to look good. You know, you don't want to look bad. And so the trouble though with that is, if you're always looking good in your memoir, the reader says he's a pompous ass. Why should I read his book? But if you make the opposite mistake and say, give only bad things about yourself, then the fellow says, oh God, he's a loser. Why read his book? So it's best to be yourself and try to put both the good and the bad, because all of us face the good and the bad. The point you made, though, is that the ego, I mean, another sort of freedom, the title of this book, is, God, it's got wet, my dear, the book. You better put it on your side. Or is yours also wet?
It's due.
It's due. Okay. Well, I'll put it on this here. Okay. That'll dry it up. So, what was I saying? I was saying,
The ego.
yeah, that another sort of freedom is really when I connected the dots from the restless child to the troublemaker, was a certain instinct to always, I don't know how you'd put it, but I'm not quite sure. But I guess the way to think about it is that freedom that I'm talking about is freedom from expectations. My mother's expectations, my father's expectations, the family, society, and But worse, the most important expectations are your own expectations. And this is your ego, which is telling you, well, you've got to be somebody. You can't be a nobody. You know? Now, that freedom, and that Malayali, writer, I was listening to her, and she was saying that freedom she was talking about is freedom to want to be liked by others. She says that if you can achieve the desire to be liked, you can be free. So anyway, I realized that the themes were similar. So
Yes, so just I wanted, before I also think we should take a couple of questions. So you were this Harvard-educated philosopher. You then become this boxwala, as they were called those days. Then you reach the top of that and you become somebody who is in the C-suite, as we call it these days. And then you become an author. So are you still that restless baby?
While you're talking about the business career, I'm just reminded, I mustn't forget, maybe I'll tell it now, and then I'll answer your question. When I started working for Vicks, I'm talking about the mid-60s now, License Raj. There's a flu in the country, and this is later already. I'm kind of rising in the company. And there's a flu. And we sell a hell of a lot of Vicks that year. So in the eyes of our headquarters, we are an American multinational. We are heroes in India, record profits. But the day we are celebrating, the company lawyer gives me a letter. It's a summons from Delhi, which says we have broken the law. And what is the law? That we had a license capacity, meaning we could produce only so many tons of Vicks a year, and we have exceeded it by almost 30%. And breaking that law entails a 3-year jail sentence. This was the license Raj. None of you are lucky, none of you will face something like that, I hope, ever again. But I'm summoned to Delhi, and the official is a joint secretary who has summoned me. He keeps me and 2 lawyers who come with me waiting at his office for hours. Then he calls us in and he's reading the newspaper. And we are sitting in front of him and he's reading the newspaper. And finally he puts the paper down and he says, "Kya? What do you want?" And I said, "Sahab, you have invited, you've called, you've summoned us. You tell us kya." And he says, no, I haven't read your file. What's the problem? So I told him, here's the summons you sent. And he says, you've broken the law. I said, yes, but there was a flu in the country. And we thought we were producing for the nation. And during this epidemic, millions of children, older people were helped. They got relief, and that's why we were doing our job, keeping the pharmacy, chemist shops stocked with our product. And he thunders back, "But you've broken the law." I said, yes, we have broken the law. Well, he says, you admit it, right? I said, yes. He says, now he's this is License Raj. And he's probably a good Bengali leftist or something like that. And he's saying, all you guys in the private sector are crooks, and I want to make an example of your company. And now the law will take its course. So, jao. He throws us out of his office. And I don't know what gets into me as I reach the door at the door of his at the end of his um, office, and I turn around and I say, "Sir, you know the news is going to leak out. We are a multinational company, and not every day an executive of a multinational company goes to jail. And it'll be covered in the papers, New York Times, Washington Post, Indian papers, English papers." And I said to him, "What do you think the world will think of us as a country? What do you think they'll think of our Prime Minister when they read that here was a company that produced for the sake of the country and helped people, and you have rewarded them with a jail sentence?" He says, "Are you threatening me?" I said, "No, the news is going to get out." And so he says, "Jao." Anyway, I am scared at this point, and the lawyers are saying, "You idiot, you should have fallen on his feet and begged for mercy." Yeah.
Did you go to jail?
No, I didn't go to jail because the government dropped the inquiry. Anyway, now you.
So I think, before, do you want to ask some questions? Then perhaps you can go back to that as your closing remarks.
Yeah,
The
okay.
restlessness. Yes, I can see that gentleman wanting to
One
ask.
person here.
There are two questions. That's why it's not. I can see you want.
Yeah, sure. Can I get up? You don't mind? Yeah, so I can hear.
The mic? Mic টা চালান, audience mic.
Okay.
আপনারা একটু সতর্ক থাকুন।
Good evening, sir. My name is Sehman Jamilur. I am the founder and CEO of Easy Investor. It's a startup. And previously, I had a software.
Please ask your questions. We are freezing out here.
Sir, my question is to like that. This is my first time being an founder plus CEO business site. So, what is your advice to do the business in an ethical way, and I can help the people as well?
You know, if you satisfy your customers, if you are fair to your suppliers, don't squeeze them too hard, and if you respect your employees, you'll succeed. And you'll be doing the ethical thing, because the ethical thing is to help people, your customers, your suppliers, and your employees, and respect them.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, there's a question here.
Hello. So this is Aditya Basu. I'm a Bengali and an Indian by heart. So, so the question I'm going to ask you, remember first, I'm a patriot, right? Yesterday I was trying to ask Mr. Amitav Ghosh that when we look at the colonial era and the British being present here in India, initially I used to feel a lot of anger in it. But later, when I actually look back at what has happened, alternative was the Mughals being here and the British not here. So, is it a case of half glass being half empty and half? I'm asking you because you have been exposed to Harvard and you have been exposed to Oxford. You have been exposed to the best of education in the Western world, right? So, we are standing here at Victoria Memorial, built by the British. Kerala, the canals have been built by the British. In India, the railways have been built by the British.
So what's your question?
Is it about our, should we be more, is it our acceptance?
Should we be grateful to the branch?
No. Should we actually, I used to be very angry about it. Okay, but when I start seeing the benefits of
How should we respond?
Yeah, I'm confused. Like, how should we look at them?
How
Because
should we respond?
during the Jalanabad 100 years, I
Get the
actually
question.
I
Got
actually
it. Got
tweeted
your question.
to Theresa May and asked her, why are you not actually apologizing for it? So I'm a patriot, but I'm confused how to look at it.
Yeah. So listen, again, this is a question. Because we are in a government that believes in nationalism, and so it's a good time to ask these questions. And and they have a relevance to today. The reality is that there's a good nationalism and a bad nationalism. Good nationalism, your question is about nationalism. Good nationalism is about my memories of my childhood, my grandmother telling me stories of the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the views, the Himalayas, and things that we all love about our country. Bad nationalism is about power. To believe that we are superior to others. That is bad nationalism. So now the person who is a good nationalist is confident about his past. The past, every country has had invaders. No country is pure in that sense. And we also had invaders. They left good things for us. They did bad things here. All invaders sacked temples and churches and all that. So the answer is not to carry your nationalism on your sleeve. Is to be quietly confident and love your country, cheer when we win the cricket match, and do all these kinds of things. But not have to proclaim every day that we are superior. The danger of bad nationalism is that it leads you to find an enemy, always. And in America, suddenly, and Europe, Europe and in the US, it's the migration, the immigrant that they have now selected to target. We have targeted, we in India have also targeted a community, the same community that the French are also targeting. Anyway, so that's the way to think of your past. Good things and bad things. Don't try to rewrite history. Accept the good things, the railways, the rule of law that was provided to us. Some of the liberal values, of course, the British gave us they were taught us liberal values while they were behaving very illiberally in our own country. So there was an irony upon irony. So that's the way I would answer your question.
I think that's where we'll have to end, because now the CISF will come and evict us.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can carry this conversation to the bookstore, where he's very happy to sign copies and answer further questions. Because thank you so much, Gurcharan. It's been an absolute delight to hear about your life, to read about your book. I've admired you since I was telling you earlier today, since Nine Jaku Hills and The Fine Family and a lot else. So please may your pen continue to wield power and delight us.
Thank you, Malvika.